Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I'm going to be changing the turn signal bulbs right here on my Avalon to some LED ones I got online. Picked up these AutoOne bulbs right here. These are 7003s and 7000s. They sell them as both because basically they're dual filament, but if you use them in a single filament, it fits in the same slot, but it only uses 2 of the contacts instead of all 4. So the single filament, usually on turn signals and reverse lights, will only do the bright side. If you need the dual filament, the second filament is usually the parking light, which is a dimmer light. So in sockets that don't have that, they won't use those other contacts, so they actually still fit in there perfectly fine. That's why they market them as both 7440s and 7443s. For the Avalon, they actually use amber bulbs, but I decided to go with the clear ones because I wanted more clear lights up front. Since this is like a daytime running light or a parking light also, I just wanted the clear since I already have the amber from the fog lights. If you guys saw my video on those fog lights, check that out. I installed the fog lights with a combination switchback and turn signal as well as a DRL. But if you guys need these same bulbs, just check out the links down in the description. I'll link to these exact bulbs that I bought as well as other options that AutoOne offers. As far as overall build quality, the backside sockets right here, that's actually a plastic. It looks like it's aluminum, but it's just a painted plastic. The front side here, that's an actual aluminum heat sink right here. That's actually metal. And then the boards right there, they're all surface mounted onto the chip. It's got a board that goes all the way around continuously, as well as the 5 LEDs for the front right there. So a lot of these bulbs are advertised as CAN bus friendly, but really they're not. I don't think they can get that resistor in there high enough for the turn signal or the hyper flashing. So I had some of these laying around right here. These are just 50 watt 8 ohm resistors. They basically mimic an incandescent bulb so that you don't hyper flash. If you do these on these newer cars, you have to actually use these. You can't change the relays anymore because everything's built into the body control module. So you just add this basically on the positive and negative signal into the turn signal bulb right at the bulb, so that way it adds a resistance. The only downside of using this is there's no longer an indicator to tell you when the lights are burnt out. So most of these resistor kits, you just end up tapping it in line with one of these crimp connectors right here. But my experience is this thing's not too reliable over time and it is a pretty weak connection. So I'm actually going to use it with these little crimp things right here. With my crimper, this does an OEM crimp, and then I'm going to either do heat shrink or just electrical tape on it. If I do heat shrink, I have to pull the pins out of that thing over there and pull it out so I can slide the heat shrink in, but then I'll be a secure connection with a nice tight connection and cover. So on the Avalon, it's got a turn signal right here on the bumper. That's also a parking light that stays on amber when the lights are on. If you saw my video last year or maybe a year and a half ago, I had installed these fog lights here. These are the aftermarket fog lights that I installed with a new bezel and everything. This thing was like a 4-in-1 fog light that had a turn signal, a DRL, a parking light, and a fog light. So it did everything and I did all the wiring for it. But right now, this turn signal right here, since it's LED, it's out of sequence with this one. So I wanted to change the bulb out so they both actually flash at the same time. And instead of doing amber, since I already have an amber turn signal here, I'm just gonna do a clear one here because this thing also stays on as a parking light and I wanted it as a clear parking light along with the DRL and LED down here. So to access the turn signal bulbs on the Avalon, it's actually pretty easy even though they're down in the bumper. Right here, if you can see right down the thing here, you could reach down there and just undo the socket on this side because it's wide open. There's nothing in the way behind this bumper or under this headlight just because of how big this engine bay is. On this side, you do have this thing in the way right here, but you can still kind of finagle your hand in there and get to the socket and change it out pretty easily once you get past all these other things that I have over here. Even though we can access it from the top side, the easiest way to get it really is from the underside here. Just unbolt this 10mm. You could just roll this thing down and reach up in there and get to the wire harness and the plug and just make it easier for yourself if you get under the car in the front like this. Once you drop that 10mm and just pull this thing aside, you could just reach up there and get the bulb right here and the harness and everything and just work on it right here. You could tap the wires. So on the wires, you'll see the white with the black line in it. That's gonna be your ground wire, and then I have to figure out which one of these, the red or the white, is the parking light and the turn signal. Most likely I think the red is going to be your turn signal and that white one is going to be your parking light, but we'll double check that in a minute. On the passenger side, you could do the same thing, but you can't pull the whole harness all the way down just because it's actually clipped into the reservoir for the windshield wiper. So you have to pop that clip out of that reservoir to get it down and work on it down here. All right, so I tested it. I've got the parking lights on right now. Like I suspected, is gonna be the parking light, and the red wire on the outside is your turn signal. So I'm getting 12 volts on that middle wire right now with the parking lights on. So ever since I discovered this tool right here with these crimpers, I've been doing these OEM connections right here, and look how nice that crimp is right there. It looks like OEM. So all you have to do is really just put that thing onto that thing and slide your wire in, and then you just close it and it ratchets close. Once it ratchets close, it's pretty much a nice secure crimp. So to remove the pins on there so we can slide that thing on, you just pop this little white cover off the end of this plug. Then once you get inside the plug, there's little clips on the bottom there that you can just release with a screwdriver or like a little pick tool that I have here. I bought these pick tools right here on Amazon that help me kind of work on wire harnesses. If you need some of these tools, go ahead and check it out on the links in the description, including that ratchet crimper and those little pins that I use to do the OEM crimp. So I went ahead and popped this thing out right here, and I was able to get the wire out, and I slipped a piece of heat shrink into here right now so I can do the work on there. I'll go ahead and crimp this first one on, and once I finish that, I'll do the turn signal side. With that resistor, it doesn't really matter which side is which. It's agnostic as far as polarity goes. I made that crimp right there. It looks nice and OEM right now and is a good connection. And I just slipped this heat shrink over, heated it up with a heat gun, and that pretty much does it for this side. And I slipped that thing right back into the pin right there, and then I'm gonna do the red side after this, and we're pretty much done with this side. The other side is gonna be a bit harder because the harness I have to work with over there is much shorter, and it's gonna be a big pain in the ass without removing the bumper. All right, got that thing all hooked up, heat shrink, and put everything back into here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap this thing with some electrical tape and get it all ready and done on this side once I test it. For my situation, this bulb was in there pretty tightly. I had to put some force on it just to get it out, but pretty much plug it back in. Like I said earlier, it's not polarity sensitive, so you don't have to worry about which side to get in, but once you plug it in, it'll know exactly which side is the low and the high side because basically the grounds are shared. So we'll go ahead and install this back in and see how it looks. All right, before I wrapped it up, I wanted to make sure I tested this so it's not hyper flashing. On this side, it was so difficult to reach, I just popped the bumper off the side here and then pulled this thing through the bumper so I could work on it here easier. So I got everything connected here and we're ready to go here once I plug it up and test it. So we got everything working now. All the flashers flash correctly with the lights on, with the lights off. We have the parking lights working. When the parking lights are on, you could barely see the flashers on the white, but you can see it on the yellow ring around the fog lights and everything, so we're good here. When you turn off the parking lights, flashing of the clear is much more obvious. Got everything good, and so we're pretty much done with this project. Anyways, if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Turn on bell notifications to get notified every time I upload a video. For all these different projects, if I can do it, you guys can do it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.